It begins with a silence so deep that it feels like the breath before creation itself. No bird stirs, no wave breaks. Only the stillness of a world not yet born. And then, from that stillness, the dark opens. An endless sky unfurls, black as ink, spilled across eternity. For a long moment there is nothing but that vast and perfect dark. Then, a thin glow, faint as the trace of a thread, spills across the horizon. It grows, it thickens, and like a hand drawing figures into clay, the shapes begin to rise. First the mountains, silent, solemn, and unmovable. They lift themselves out of nothingness, their peaks cutting into the sky as if the earth itself were stretching upward, longing for something it cannot yet name. Below them, rivers spread like veins, silver lines running across bare stone, carving paths where life will one day follow. And around the stones, a soft wind begins to move, curling like breath around the ribs of a body just learning to live. There are no cities, no temples, no walls, no crowns, no voices of men. Only the raw pulse of a world that waits to be spoken into the story. And then, from somewhere deep within the dark, a sound rises. At first it is no more than a faint trembling, like a string plucked far away, but it grows. It grows, until it hums through the sky like the first note of a song that will never truly end. The earth takes shape beneath it. Gaia, vast and heavy, her body rich with promise, her skin is a cradle for every future seed. Above her, Uranus stretches cold and wide, a sky so endless it feels almost cruel. They are not yet gods, they are not yet even stories. They are beginnings. From their meeting, time itself begins to gather weight. Seasons turn in the dark like a wheel, slowly, slowly, until the silence is broken again. The Titans come. They rise like mountains, their shoulders crowned with storms. Their hands shape valleys and seas, their feet split the stone, and wherever they pass, the stillness changes. In their shadows, smaller lives begin to stir, too small to see at first, too soft to be heard. But they are there, waiting, and one day they will matter more than all the stars. This is the first age, the age when earth and sky learn to hold each other. The age when the roots of myth dig deep into the soil, so deep that no age to come will never pull them free. There is a promise here, and there is a warning. Because from this beginning will come all that follows: love and hate, blood and mercy, the fall of the mighty and the rise of the small. And as the sky darkens again, as the wind folds back upon itself, you can almost hear it, if you listen very closely, the sound of a single heartbeat, slow, patient, and ready. The first heartbeat of the story, of memory, of a world about to wake. It calls, and soon the first names will be spoken into the air, names that will echo from mountain to sea as the next age begins to stir from this deep, eternal silence. The sky is heavy. It hangs low over the edge of the world, swollen with thunder and dread. In that dim light, a man stands barefoot on the damp earth, and the wind smells of pine and iron. Cronus does not look like a king. He looks like a shadow carved from the fear of prophecy, a son who has waited too long for this moment and can wait no longer. In his hands, the sickle gleams, bronze sharpened to a cruel edge. Its curve catches the last of the twilight like a flame. The other Titans stand in a ring around him. They say nothing. They only watch. For they too have known the weight of a father who never loved, and the sky above them has always been more prison than home. A hush falls. Even the trees hold their breath, and then the strike comes, quick, certain. The air splits like torn cloth, and with that blow, the heavens scream. Uranus falls back, and the light of the old order goes out. For a moment there is silence. Then the sky begins to bleed stars, and the world shifts beneath their feet. It is done, but from that wound in the heavens a new and darker age begins. Cronus takes the throne, but his rule is not built on peace. It is built on fear. He sits among stone halls where the walls are slick with water, where the wind is always cold. In the flicker of torches, you can see it in his eyes, the prophecy he carries like a curse. One of his children will take from him what he has taken today, God, and so when they are born, one by one, he swallows them, not from hunger, not from hatred, but from terror. Each small cry, each soft hand reaching for a mother's warmth, is devoured before it can grow. Hall echoes. Ria's voice. Her arms cradle nothing. Her lips kiss the air where a child once lay. Her grief runs like a river through the stone, but grief has a way of turning to courage. And courage, when it is pressed long enough, becomes cunning. In secret, she hides. 1. A small boy. A son born in the hour when the stars burn coldest. She wraps him in rough cloth and gives him not to the palace, but to the earth itself. In the mountains, a shepherd takes him in. His cradle is no more than a hollow in the rock. The wind becomes his lullaby. The smell of goats and grass became his first memory. And in the palace, Ria offers a stone instead. Wrapped in cloth, heavy as her sorrow, Cronus swallows it whole, and the hall grows quiet. He does not know. He cannot know. Far from him, the boy lives. The boy grows. And the world waits. The earth pauses in its turning. The rivers run slower, as if they too are listening. The sky holds its breath as the wind carries the faint cry of an infant through the cracks of the mountains. No one knows yet what this cry will become. But in it, there is a promise. The promise that even in an age ruled by fear, hope finds a place to hide. And so the story begins to shift. From the blood of a father to the hunger of a son. From a throne stolen to a throne that will be taken. Again. In the cold and the silence, a new name is being born. And beyond the mountains, the next age waits, listening for the sound of that boy's first step. The waves beat like war drums. Day and night they throw themselves against the black rocks, spray salt, and chill air. Upon this island lonely and battered a boy grows. The nymphs who raise him speak softly, their voices thin as mist, soothing the cries of a child born under a shadow. They bring him honey and milk, wild berries gathered from thorny bushes, and they bathe his small limbs in streams that fall from the cliffs. But no song can drown the sea. The sound of the water never stops. It roars at the edge of his dreams, telling him there is a world beyond these stones, and that one day it will call him back. Zeus learns to walk where no hall stands, beneath the low roofs of shepherd huts where goats bleat and the wind cuts through holes in the walls. His small hands touch the rough bark of olive trees, and his feet toughen on the unyielding stone. He knows no silk, no crown, only the taste of bread baked from coarse grain, the sting of cold rain on bare shoulders, and the slow strength that hardship gives. As the years pass, he grows tall. The nymphs watch him in silence. There is something in his eyes now, something older than his years. He looks beyond the cliffs often. He does not speak of it, but in his heart, the sea and the sky are the same thing. Both promise a freedom that has not yet come, and finally, it's time. He descends from the mountain. The air changes as he walks. Storm clouds roll behind him, gathering on his shoulders like a cloak. Every step shakes the ground, and the stones remember the weight of his anger. For the first time since the prophecy, Cronus will see his son. War begins in thunder. They will call it the Titanomachi. 10 years the earth will endure it. 10 years of screams ripping through the sky. 10 years of mountains split apart as if they were nothing but clay. The earth quakes. The seas rise and crash against the land. The air burns. Every blow lights the sky as titans, huge as the mountains themselves, fight the younger gods who dare to challenge them. For a time, it seems as if the world itself will break. But the boy who once hid among shepherds does not break. Every strike he gives is for the siblings stolen from him. Every shout is for the mother who wept over empty cradles. Every flash is a promise kept. One by one, the titans fall. And in the end, Cronus falls too. The prophecy has been spoken. The Son has taken the Father's throne. Chains as heavy as the earth itself bind the defeated titans. They are thrown into the deepest chasm, far below the roots of the mountains, where no sun will ever reach. And at last, after so many years of storm, the sky clears. Blue, wide, endless. For the first time in a generation, light falls unbroken across the world. In that light, a new throne rises. White marble steps climb high into the clouds, and there, at the very edge of heaven, Zeus sits. The boy was once hidden, the boy who grew on stone and salt. Now a king. The age of the Olympians begins, but power never rests easily. Even as the wind settles, there's a shadow waiting at the edges of the sky. A reminder that every victory carries its own cost. And far below Olympus, deep in the cracks of the world, something ancient shifts in its sleep, waiting for its own time to rise. Rain has passed, and the mountain glistens. At the top of the world, where clouds lie curled around the peaks like sleeping animals, the halls of Olympus rise. The stone here gleams as if it has been washed in silver. Columns stretch so high they seem to pierce the very skin of heaven, and the air is thick with the scent of cedar smoke and crushed grapes. It is not the stillness of peace that holds this place, but the stillness before voices begin to echo again, before the long halls fill with footsteps and the sound of power learning to breathe. In these shining halls, the new gods gather. They come with the scars of war still fresh upon them, but their eyes already turn toward rule. Hera walks first, her crown heavy as if it were hammered from pride itself. She moves like a river under ice, slow, clear, and full of force. She has known betrayal and love in equal measure, and both weigh upon her. Poseidon follows, his hair salted with the memory of waves. The smell of the sea clings to him, and even when he stands among marble, you can hear the tidal hiss in his voice. His hands, when they curl as if around a trident. Athena steps out of thought itself. Her eyes are as bright and sharp as the edge of a sword, and there is no hesitation in them. She has never been a child. Wisdom was her first breath, and others come, bearing light, bearing darkness, each carrying their own piece of the world like a fragment of the sun. Together, they begin to build. The new order is made not of kindness, but of law. From these heights, they look down on the fragile fires of mortal lives, and they bind the world with oaths. Temples rise like white blossoms in the valleys and on the high cliffs. Stone upon stone, they stand as offerings to the unseen. In the mornings, the scent of figs, of olives, and crushed grain drifts from the altars. At night, prayers rise like thin threads of smoke from fishermen, from mothers who have lost children, from kings who cannot sleep. They curl upward, seeking the eyes of the gods, and the gods listen. But they do not only listen, for in every heart that beats on Olympus, there is something restless. Jealousy creeps like cracks through marble. Anger burns and fades and burns again. Love grows bitter. Oaths are broken, for though these gods are powerful, they are not stones. They hunger. They remember. They dream. And so the mountain never knows silence for long. It is a place of unbroken watching. Every glance, every word is heavy with the knowledge that to rule is to be at war, even with those who share your blood. Below, the earth lies green and tender. Villages spark with tiny fires. Ships crawl across the wine-dark sea. The lives of mortals unfold like reeds bending in a storm, and they do not yet know how closely the wind that bends them comes from these heights. In the glow of evening, as the last of the sun pools in gold along the steps, Zeus stands alone for a moment, looking out. The sky beneath him stretches forever, and in that endless reach, there is a whisper of something waiting. of something that cannot yet be seen. And far below, on the edge of a plain where the rivers meet, a mortal hand lifts a cup of wine to the sky and speaks a name. The gods are watching. And now at last, the stories of men and gods begin to weave together. Thread by thread. It is a weaving that will not come undone. Not while Olympus stands. Not while there is breath in the wind. Not while the mountain holds its throne above. The clouds. The night begins with a sound no larger than a thread. A single string drawn across a lyre, trembling in the hands of a bard. It rises, thin and golden, into the air. It slips through the smoke of the fire, into the dark rafters of a small village hall, and out into the fields where the wind stirs the tall grass like water. Beyond the walls of Olympus, far from the shining columns and the cold gaze of the gods, life is carried on in the rhythm of the earth. The smell of soil and salt is everywhere. Men bend their backs beneath the weight of plows. Women carry water in clay jars, their hands red and raw from the river. Children run barefoot along narrow paths. Their laughter is a thin shield against hunger. In the heat of day, they work. In the cool of evening, they look up to the wide sky and speak the names of gods. Each word is a mixture of reverence and fear. A sudden hush in the olive groves, a soft wind moving across the fields, all are taken as an answer. The boundary between heaven and earth feels thin here, but it is still a boundary. And yet, from among these lives, there are those who rise. Perseus begins as nothing more than a boy with a polished shield. Its surface is as bright as water. But in that mirror of bronze, he sees the face of a monster that he cannot look at directly. His journey carries him over black waves, through winds that taste of salt and iron. At the edge of the world, in a cave where no sunlight lives, Medusa waits. Her hair moves like a nest of serpents. Her eyes are not cruel. They are full of a sorrow that has hardened into rage from years of exile. But destiny does not turn away. Steel moves faster than grief, and in the stillness that follows, a single head lies upon the sand, and the cave is silent once more. Far from that place, Theseus boards a ship painted with black sails. The scent of pitch and seafoam burns his throat. Behind him, Athens fades into a blur. Ahead lies the island of Crete, and beneath its palaces, the twisting corridors of a labyrinth. Stone sweats in that maze. The air is thick and close. Every sound echoes. And in that darkness, something breathes a sound like the slow bellows of a forge. A heart that belongs to a creature that is neither man nor beast. Step by step, he walks deeper, carrying a single torch, its flame a fragile bloom of light. The Minotaur is waiting. Its hunger has shaped the halls of this prison. But Theseus has come with a thread, a simple coil of string that holds his hope. One life against centuries of famine. The mortal world is not made of peace. It is made of courage sharpened by desperation. Every step these heroes take, every risk they endure, is seen from the mountain above. And the gods, those who once shaped rivers and stars, now lean closer. They watch to see how far a single human heart can go when the weight of the impossible presses down upon it. And in the villages, where the fields smell of time and the night is heavy with the hum of cicadas, bards sing. They sing with low voices that carry like embers in the dark. The strings of a lyre tremble in their hands, and each note lifts upward toward the wide dark sky. There, for a moment, the distance between mortal and divine feels no thicker than a breath. The song fades, the fire sinks low, and in the stillness, something waits. For this is only the beginning, and soon the deeds of mortals will stir thee. Gods do act in ways no prayer could ever have foreseen. The first light of dawn spills across a city of white stone. It runs down the fluted columns, over the tiled roofs, and into the narrow streets where the air still smells of night. There, at the base of a temple, a young man pauses with a chisel in his hand. He tilts his face to the rising sun. For a moment, it blinds him. For a moment, it feels like a blessing. This is Daedalus. His hands know the shape of beauty, the way a river knows its bed. Marble bends for him. Bronze moves like clay beneath his hammer. What he makes outlives him. And because of this, kings watch him. Kings want what only his hands can make. So the summons comes, as it always does, carried by ships with painted sails. Across the wine-dark sea he travels to Crete, to a palace that smells of cedar and salt. There he is given a task. Build a prison, he is told. Build a place that no one can leave, not beast, not man, not even memory. And so he does. Stone by stone, he raises it. Corridors that twist back on themselves like the insides of a dream. Walls that lean and fold like waves. The air inside is cold and wet, full of the smell of lime dust and fresh-cut rock. By the time he finishes, the thing feels alive. A maze with its own slow heartbeat. A place where footsteps go in and never come out. Yet when the work is done, sorrow begins. For genius, like power, always has a cost. And in the stillness of night, Daedalus lies awake, hearing the faint sound of a creature moving in the dark. Heart of what he has made. He knows this place will swallow more than bodies. It will swallow him too, if he stays. So he begins again, in secret. Not with stone this time, but with feathers. Not bronze, but wax. The wings grow in the shadows of his workshop, pale as bone. When they are ready, he straps them to his own shoulders and to the shoulders of his son. The dawn comes again, and the air tastes sharp as they run toward the edge of the world. Then the ground falls away. For the first time, the sky belongs to them. The wind roars in their ears. The island falls small behind them. And for a little while, it feels like freedom. But freedom is a dangerous thing. The boy, Icarus, lifts his face toward the light. The sun calls him as if it were a song, warm and golden and full of promise. He climbs higher, higher. The air thins, the wind burns, and the wax begins to soften. Feathers tear away like autumn leaves. His arms beat the air, but the sky no longer holds him. The boy falls, turning over and over, until the sea, wide and merciless, takes him into its arms. Daedalus lands alone. The wings fall from his shoulders, broken things now. On the shore, he stands with his hands open, as if to catch something that has already gone. Around him, the sea keeps moving. It does not pause. It does not return what it has taken. And so he walks away from the water, from the white palaces, from the coils of the maze he once built. The sound of the waves becomes the only sound that stays with him. Every invention from that day on is touched by that sound. Above him, clouds move across the sun, and the world grows quieter, as if waiting for the next act of courage or of grief, rise from the dust of men. For even now, beyond the shore, other stories begin. And soon, another thread will pull us toward a city at war, and the walls that will burn under a sky that has seen everything. Hush falls over the hills as the day slips into its last pale hour. The light clings to the edges of the olive leaves, turning them to silver, and the groves stand like a dream half remembered. Somewhere in that quiet, a voice begins, soft, broken, calling not to be heard, but to be answered. It is Echo. Her voice once bright as running water, once quick with laughter, now only a shadow of itself. She wanders between the trees, her bare feet in the moss, her eyes are always searching. She longs for the warmth of a gaze that never turns toward her. Each word she speaks is stolen from another's mouth, a gift turned into a curse. And so, little by little, the girl who was once flesh and bone becomes only the thin thread of her own sound, until at last nothing is left of her but the ghost of her longing, repeated by the wind. By a still pool deep in those woods, another figure bends low, Narcissus. The water is calm tonight, a mirror cut from glass. He kneels at the edge and sees a face that startles him. a face lit from below by the trembling surface. It is his own, but he does not know that. He cannot look. Away, days pass. The sun comes and goes. He drinks nothing, eats nothing. Only the image matters. And as he stares, his body thins, his voice weakens, until one morning the pool shows only ripples, and a pale flower stands where a boy once knelt. Among these groves the nymphs wander, their fingers moving over the bark of trees, as if touching the memory of time itself. They know the silence of echo. They know the pool where narcissus faded. Their song carries both sorrow and sweetness. When the moon rises full, the satyrs come. Their small hooves leave light marks in the soil, and the air fills with the sound of pipes. They dance in circles wild and tireless, chasing a joy that never lasts past dawn. The music is sharp, a sound that cuts the night open and let out some madness. Yet even here, where beauty lives in every shadow, grief coils quietly. For every gift the gods have given, there's a weight that follows. Every blessing has a cost. The stories thread themselves together, tight as knots, a song braided to a silence, a promise tied to a punishment, love that begins with a glance and ends in ruin. The groves stand as they always have, but if you stand still long enough, you will hear the world breathing. In that breath lives the echo of voices that have gone, and the slow, patient beat of stories that never die, only change. Shape dot, and beyond these trees, beyond the silver leaves and the dancing pipes, the sound of drums begins to rise. A different kind of music now, one that speaks of war, of walls that will stand, and of a city that will burn under the eyes of gods who are never still. A single arrow hums at dusk. It strikes not flesh but shield, and the sound it makes is like a bell tolling far away. On the wide plain before Troy, men and horses stand frozen, their breath rising in white clouds that twist in the bitter wind. The sea behind them is restless, its waves breaking like a drumbeat. This is how war waits, not always in the cry of battle, but in the slow tightening of silence. Then the shouting comes. It rolls forward like fire through dry grass. Shields lift, spears lower. The first ranks run, feet pounding the earth that is already stained with years of blood. Bronze strikes bronze. The sky fills with the clang of iron and the deep, hoarse cries of men who no longer know how to stop. It began. With pride, it always does. When kings forget the weight of the gods and remember only themselves, ships gather. Across the Aegean they came, white sails like gulls crowding the horizon, oars rising and falling like the wings of a great flock. The smell of pitch and salt, the sound of ropes straining, and the promise of glory led them here. The walls of Troy rose from the plain like a dare. Stone upon stone, high towers crowned with banners, iron gates that shone beneath the sun. For every insult, for every stolen oath, those walls were the answer. For 10 long years the plain became a grave. The seasons changed, but the battle did not. Winter winds cut through tents of rough cloth. Summer sun baked the armor until it burned the skin beneath. Dust mixed with blood until both were the same red-brown. There were heroes among them. Achilles, whose anger burned brighter than the polished bronze on his shoulders. He moved through battle like a storm, unbroken, unforgiving. And there was Hector, Prince of Troy, whose courage stood like a tower even when the tower itself began to fall. When they faced each other, the world seemed to hold its breath. One fell, and the war balance shifted. Above them all, the gods watched. They whispered, they argued, they chose sides and changed them, their favor no steadier than the wind on the open sea. For men below, the cost was always the same. And when the end came, it came with fire. The gates were broken, and the city that had stood so proud began to crumble. Flames licked the sky, turning night into a terrible red dawn. The streets filled with smoke and weeping. Women were dragged from their homes. Children were gathered and scattered like seeds thrown to the earth. The wind carried the crackle of burning roofs and the low, endless sound of grief. In the morning, Troy was only ashes. The plain that had held so much anger fell silent. The heroes who had lived long enough to see that silence stood and stared at what was left, and something in them knew that their own return would not be easy. For war does not end when the city burns. It travels with those who leave. It follows them across the sea, back to their homes, into their dreams. And the long road of return, full of storms and shadows and things no blade can fight, had only just begun. On the horizon the ships unfurl their torn sails. The sea swallows the keels one by one, until nothing remains on the shore but smoke rising like a question and the faint sound of waves beating against the stones where a city once stood. And out there, far beyond the sight of Troy's blackened ruins, another story waits, of a man who will wander for 10 long years, guided by nothing but the will to see his home once more. A lone gull circles above a gray and endless sea. Below, a single ship leans against the wind, its sail torn, its oars moving with the slow strength of men who have forgotten what it feels like to rest. Salt crusts their lips. Their eyes are hollow, fixed on a horizon that never comes closer. This is how Odysseus travels, not in glory, but in long, stubborn silence. The war behind him has burned itself out. Troy is ash, but no fire stays out of the wind, and for 10 years the fire of longing has chased him from one shore to another. Every wave that strikes the hull is a reminder of the home he has not touched. Ithaca lives in him like a wound that will not close. The sea gives him no easy passage. It rises like a wall, throws itself upon him, pulls him down into its cold, green heart. Storms break his ships. Lightning tears the black sky into jagged pieces. But he clings to the wood, his hands bleeding, his teeth set against the roar. When the sea spits him out, he stands up again. Always, he stands up again. On strange shores he walks among things that should not exist. A cave where the smell of milk and wet wool hides something darker. A single eye, large as a shield, turning toward him in the half-light. A giant shadow fills the rock walls. Men are lifted like dolls and crushed in hands that have never known mercy. Odysseus waits. His mind is sharper than the blades he carries. When the chance comes, he strikes. The sick smell of burned flesh fills the cave. The Cyclops roars, and the sound shakes the stones. Blind, it gropes the walls, and Odysseus and his men slip into the night, their feet sliding on blood and milk, their hearts pounding like drums. But the sea has more trials. An island of voices waits. The sirens sing, and their song is like water. Over smooth stones, soft and cool, calling him to let go. He binds himself to the mast, orders his men to stop their ears with wax, and though the music fills his head with longing so fierce it feels like pain, he does not break his bonds. The voices fade, the wind returns. The sea opens its mouth and lets them pass. There are other shores. A queen who keeps him as if love could chain him. A witch whose hands smell of herbs and whose words are poison. A kingdom where the dead speak, their whispers are colder than the mist around them. And always the waves, always the miles of water. Between him and the rocky hills of Ithaca, year after year he endures. The faces of his men grow fewer, the nights grow longer. Even the stars seem strange, their patterns changed since the war. But he keeps sailing. Something in him refuses to stop. And then one morning, the mist lifts. Out of the gray, a shape rises. Cliffs, rough and sharp, the smell of earth, of sheep on the hills, of olive trees. Ithaca. He steps onto the shore barefoot, the stones cold against skin that has walked too long on wood. The wind from the hills carries the sound of goats, of a stream running over rocks. He closes his eyes and lets it all wash through him. This place. This earth is both what he left and something entirely new. For he has changed. He carries in his body the weight of every trial, every voice, every wave. Home has not come to him, he has earned it, and in this, old stories give their final truth. The myths are not only of gods, nor monsters filling the horizon. They are of men and women who keep moving forward no matter how long the road, no matter how heavy the cost. The sea lies quiet behind him now. But far away, in another time, another traveler will step into a world just as vast, and the long journey will begin again. A single torch burns in a ruined hall. Its flame bends and wavers as if it too remembers. Stone columns, once straight and proud, lie broken, their fallen drums eaten by moss and rain. The night presses in, and the wind moves through the empty courtyards, lifting the scent of earth and crushed leaves. In that wind are voices, thin as threads, carrying the prayers of long ago. Here, where marble is cracked and gold is dulled, the gods no longer walk. Olympus still rises above the clouds, but its thrones are far away, untouched, while below, men and women have grown old, and their cities have fallen into dust. But listen, the silence is not empty. A faint murmur comes from a circle of light, far from palaces, far from temples. It is a hearth fire, and around it, faces gather. The smoke curls up into the dark, carrying with it a story. The story is old, but every telling makes it new. The names return first: Zeus, Hera, Athena, Poseidon. Then the places: mountain, sea, Troy wall. Then the faces: heroes and lovers, betrayers and faithful ones. The voice of the storyteller is soft, but it binds the listeners as surely as any chain. Children lean closer. Old men close their eyes and see again what they once thought lost. For in the speaking of these stories, ruins lift themselves, columns rise from the earth, and the halls of Olympus open wide. The gods live again, if only for the length of a single night. Outside the circle of fire, the world is dark and wide. The sea lies quiet, its waves smoothing the sand. Its breath is slow and patient. Somewhere out there, beneath the silver of the moon, broken ships sleep on the seabed, their timbers wrapped in seaweed, their sails long eaten away. And above them, the constellations, those same patterns that once guided the hands of heroes, still burn, unmoved. Time does not keep the gods alive. It is memory that does. The stubborn memory of mortals who hold the stories in their mouths, as if they were bread. And so the myths do not end. They turn, like the sea, like the seasons, always coming back to the beginning. Somewhere, a child will grow and hear the name of Achilles for the first time. Somewhere, a hand will draw the line of a labyrinth in the sand and think of the Minotaur. Somewhere, under a sky full of stars, someone will speak of a journey home. And in the telling, Odysseus will walk again. The fire in the ruined hall is almost gone now. It lowers itself to embers, a red glow in a sea of shadow. The last sound is the hush of the waves kissing the darkened shore. The night deepens, and the land of Greece sleeps beneath it, full of dreams and the weight of all its old, unbroken stories. And somewhere above it all, beyond the reach of wind and time, the gods sit upon their mountain, watching, waiting, as another voice, another spark, begins to tell it all again.